So here we are a few days later, and I need to get this thing put together and get it off the bench. The gasket that's stuck on there pretty well. I've been soaking it in penetrating oil, hoping it would free up a little bit. I'm going to try some red Scotch-Brite. I'm going to take a wild guess that this gasket has been, or this carburetor has been rebuilt at one time. Somebody used some heavy-duty gaskets and had to put it back together. Something underneath that gasket as it's coming off of there. I hate to say it, but I think that's going to have to go for a ride in the ultrasonic cleaner, see if we can soften some of that glue up. That is ridiculous. I'll be right back. Okay, this has been soaking for about another 10 or 15 minutes, and as you can see, when I scrape my fingernail across it, it is much softer than it was. Let this be a lesson to you if you're going to use gasket cleaner, or sorry, gasket cement when you're assembling something. The next guy that comes along is going to have a hard time getting it apart to clean things up and do it properly. Now, while I'm using the screwdriver to scrape at the surface, I'm not putting very much pressure on it. I don't want to carve it up and make it necessary to put more gasket glue on there to get it to seal. Because with my luck, I'll be the next person taking this apart. Well, let's finish it up. There we go, cleaned up. I'm going to take it outside and spray it down with carb cleaner, just so there's no little bits of Scotch-Brite left in the grooves, and then we can finish putting the pump back together. I'll be right back. There we go, good like new. So that's got the fuel pump side reassembled. Now it's time to start reassembling the metering side. Now, unfortunately, I don't know how well the camera will pick it up. There's a little flap on there that acts like a check valve. And I was hoping that there was going to be a new one in the kit, but there does not appear to be. New one seat. It's all the old stuff, and I've gone through this tray a couple times to look for the little check valve, and there does not appear to be one. So, I think we'll take that off if the GIS screwdriver will cooperate. Which it's not going to. So I think we're going to leave that well enough alone. The carburetor was working fine. That's not stuck. So I think we're just going to leave everything the way it is. Gasket needs to go in there. 35 and 36 are the high and low speed jet. This would be the low speed jet. This would be the high speed jet. Now again, this carburetor is very clean. I took it apart when I cleaned, or when I first purchased the jet ski, and cleaned everything out very thoroughly. Unfortunately, I didn't have any gaskets at the time, so really the main purpose of this rebuild is not so much to clean everything up, because everything is very much spotless. It's more along the lines to place gaskets that weren't changed originally. And there's screw. There's Mr. Screw. There we go. This here is the arm for the needle and seat. I mentioned last time, or time before, I forget which, that I'm going to reuse the original. I had the pop-off pressure, the float level, although there's no float, but same idea, all set up on this carburetor when I purchased the jet ski a year ago with the used parts. So I'm reasonably assured that this is going to work. There's physically nothing wrong with it. It's not worn, it's not loose, and it is set at the correct angle. The carburetor kit did come with a new shaft and a new arm, which I could put in and set up, but since I've got perfectly serviceable parts here, we will reuse those parts. The needle and seat comes in its own little bag with a protective cap on it. Has a O-ring, and everything looks good. It is unfortunately a brass seat and a stainless steel needle. From what I understand, there are kits available that you can get a stainless steel seat and a stainless steel needle, and those are the better kits. Unfortunately, this is what we got. Put a little bit of lubrication on the O-ring so that it slides it down into the hole nice. And there isn't really an orientation on this. It just goes down into the hole. Carefully take a screwdriver and push it down until the little lip here is level with this area here, because there's a retainer that goes down into that hole. Also, as I mentioned previously, this is the original spring. The carburetor kit came with 3 or 4 different springs, 2 or 3 different springs. Different springs are different color, and they also have a different springiness to them. If you do have to replace it, say you lose it, or you have one that's all bent up, make sure you get the one that's the same color. That will affect your quote-unquote float level if you change the spring out. One thing I am going to do here, I'm going to lift the needle out, and I'm going to put a little bit of silicone lube down in the bottom. We don't need that at this absolute moment. However, we are going to be doing what they call a pop-off test before we completely finish assembling this, and you need a little bit of wetness on the tip of the needle to get a good seal to do the pop-off test. So, with the seat, needle and seat in place, we take the retainer and its screw Everything looks reasonably clean. Drop the retainer in. Again, this is not Phillips, this is JIS, and you'll see how that fits so nice on there. Snug it up. We don't want to over tighten it, but we want it snug enough that it's not going to come falling out of there. Next we take the float arm, for lack of a better term. There's a little divot here that sits on the spring. Oops, so we don't lose the shaft. There's a hook on the back side of the needle, and we need to get the small arm hooked underneath. The spring needs to go under the divot, and it goes down into place. We have a retaining screw. It is a tapered head. Again, JIS screwdriver. And snugged up. Now, the trick here is we want this arm to essentially be, if not level, parallel with the body of the carburetor. That should give you your float level. And that seems to work fine. Okay, next item. Basically done with that for the moment. Next item to go in is going to be our jets. Now, as you can see, there's an O-ring on here, and these O-rings are very much crispy. Extract these carefully so that you don't bend the tip of the needle, and you want to keep the washer on there. And very much crispy compared to a new one. Again, I'm going to put a little bit of lubrication on here just so that it slides over the threads nice and easy without cutting. And we'll do the other one. Again, this O-ring, I don't think it's quite as bad as the first one, but it is crispy. A little lubrication. And it slides right on. Now, we have one port here and one port here, that the two jets go into. And I don't remember which one came from which, but I do have the exploded diagram of the carburetor. And it shows that the T-handle one came from the same side as the throttle arm, and the one with the cap on it came from the opposite side. So here's the T-handle one. And I'll show you that cap in a moment. Okay. We will have to look in the manual to figure out how many turns out that is supposed to be. I believe this one was set. I don't remember. I'd have to look it up in the video, and it's easier just to get it from the manual, then we know it's right. So here's the other one. You'll notice that this has a little arm on it here that sticks down, and that arm engages with the slot in this boss. And what that is going to do is give you about a quarter turn of adjustment, which is all that you're supposed to be able to adjust this. I want to be careful that we don't break that arm off as we're tightening. And as you can see, it's engaged so that the I can't turn it more than what is allowed. However, the needle is not all the way in yet, so just kind of lightly pry that out of the way so that we can keep tightening until we're seated. Okay, we are seated. And I believe that this was only set at about a quarter, but we'll have to make sure. I will check the manual and come right back. Okay, I checked the manual, and this is the high speed, and it is basically a quarter turn. So we're out a quarter turn, open, enriches, closed, leans it out. And on the idle side it says 3/4 to 1 1/4 turn for a single carburetor. So we're seated, there's half, there's 3/4, and that would be about 1. Okay, so let us try doing a pop-off. Which one of these? I'm not sure which one we're supposed to put that on. One is the supply, one is the return. This is the supply side. Put it in the supply side, I believe we cap off the return, and then we pump it up until we get a pop. We see what it is. What I have here is a pop-off testing tool. It is a little air pump. Hook onto there, and we pump it up. And basically, not ideal, but we're going to be pretty much 29 psi is the pop-off pressure for this particular carburetor, or that's the target we're aiming for. And this gauge only goes to 30. I would prefer to have the pop-off that we need somewhere in the middle, but we have what we have. I don't have another pop-off tester. So, and keep your face back because that is going to spray silicone spray all over the place when it pops. 20, 25, and that popped basically at 29. Perfect. Exactly where we wanted it. And the reason you check this is essentially this is your float level. And you don't want it to be too high or too low because that will give you either a lean or a rich condition which you're not able to adjust out with the high and low speed jets. So next item on the list, now that we've got that sorted out, is the diaphragm. And you'll notice that there is a distinctive difference between the sides of the diaphragm. Like the big washer goes in against that. Here's the old one, provides you with an O-ring and the diaphragm. And you can see this one is a little on the crispy side. Got a quick wiping off. Tab goes into a notch. You'll notice that there's a vent here. This is your atmospheric pressure vent. It's the back side of the diaphragm. if that were covered over for some reason with grease, or if it were taped over, like masked over because you were painting, that sort of thing, it would more than likely have a detrimental effect on your mixture. You take the screws, they're clean. Again, these are not Phillips, these are JIS. Give everything a quick once over, make sure that the controls function the way they should. This is the choke butterfly. No crap stuck to it. Because remember, there is no air filter. Everything that is, all the loose garbage that could be sitting in this carburetor will be going directly into the engine when you start the engine. Everything looks good. This is the idle speed adjustment. Unfortunately, there's not a functional tachometer on the GTS at this time. I do have a tach that is originally from a 93 XP, and I've tried setting it up on the GTS, and for some reason I can't get it to work quite yet. That's another project for another day. So we won't be able to set the idle speeds other than by ear. Basically, this thing is ready to go back on the machine. I'm going to end this video here because we're done building the carburetor. I will put a separate video of installing it back into the machine, probably tied with the video of putting the starter rebuild and reinstallation of the starter. So everybody have a good day, and we'll catch up with you in another video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you very much. Bye.